Hey guys, welcome back to the Reversal Roundup Street Fighter League edition. I'm Logan Sama, and right here every week we round up all of the exciting fixtures that happen across Europe, America and Japan on Street Fighter League this past week. There's been some great action, so let's not delay any further and jump straight into Europe Week 3.
Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome!
It was week 6 in Europe and we had two very important fixtures this week. In game 1, we saw Wild Blast desperate to put more points on the board away against Team GO, who despite not having a great win record, have a fantastic place on the leaderboard. Wild Blast gave a debut to MDZ Jimmy, who locked in with Ryu in the first game. It was Vega Patch in the second game with Fung, and Momi once again in that anchor role locked in with Cammy. Jimmy was ready for his debut and he said they were going to show a new side to Wild Blast.
We're going to play Wild now, so that's the change, you know?
It was Akainu that came forward to meet him and he locked in with his old main Guile, getting the job done here. A 2-0 defeat saw both Wild Blast and Jimmy kick off this week's match with an uphill struggle. Team captain Luffy stepped up for the second match, and despite having a bit of historical trouble against Fang, he still believes that the old strategies are the best.
Double dash command grab works still against Yuri as well, right?
Definitely.
Vega Patch put up a good fight in the first two games and eventually tied it up 1 apiece, but that just seemed to enrage Luffy in the next round. Utilizing the V-shift to avoid Fang's pressure, it was the corner pressure from Luffy that closed it out with, of course, a command grab for a 2-1 win and putting Team GO 20 points in the lead going into the last anchor game. It was no surprise to see Valmaster's Chun-Li in the anchor match, one of the most reliable, consistent players so far this season. And he was looking sharp in this first game. Momi coming back though and showing that his hit confirms are just as sharp to tie it up. With the momentum in Momi's favour, he was able to close out in a scrappy third game to go 2-1 up. But Valmaster mounted a comeback. And what an epic comeback it was. We're going into a game 5. This time the spiral arrow did work and the frame trap managed to pull it back. We're going to a final round. But this time the EX spiral arrow was not the answer, and an incredibly tight set. This really underlined the poor fortune that Wild Blast are having this season. A 40-0 defeat only adds to their woes this season. Our next match saw another team that certainly needs to step it up, but they're definitely not as far off the pack as Wild Blast. Reason were away against Team BMS. They put forward a lineup that saw MQS leading off with Fang. We saw Soundboy in second place with Cody, and Shivs was in the anchor role with his Manat. MQS stepped up and he was assuming that Kills You was going to be coming forward.
I mean, they could do Link Excello, but I'm assuming Kills You.
And he was right. The talented young Parisian player was ready to take on the challenge. But so was MQS as he pulled into an early lead. And he managed to close out a huge 2-0 victory to put Reason in a great position and take yet another big name scalp in Street Fighter League. In the second game, Soundboy faced TKR, and it was an emphatic victory. Everything seemed to be going right. It was going right until Mr. Crimson stepped up. As Crimson put his 100% record on the line to defend Team BMS, Shiv's Manat could not stand up to the pressure. The offensive pressure off the V-reversal in Game 2 proved to be too much, and Mr. Crimson pulled ahead into a dominant lead, which forced Shivs to switch to a surprise Rose pick. But in a dominant third game, Mr. Crimson closed it out, and it was 20 points each as we go into a tiebreaker match. MQS said he wanted Crimson.
I'd love to add Mr. Crimson to the wall. I'd love to add Crimson to the wall. I'd love to do that.
And Crimson is what he got. But they say you should be careful what you wish for. It might just come true. And Crimson, with another win, adds to his 100% victory. He closed it out in 2 rounds, and it was a 25-20 point victory for BMS. That close defeat saw Reason Gaming still in touch of the pack on 75 points, while Blast lagging far behind. GO and BMS pushing ahead this time round, but of course we are going to see many more games still to play. Both 00 Nation and Mouse Sports are both in action, and they're going to be looking to pad their scores with favourable matchups against the 5th and 6th place teams. But Reason and Wild Blast are going to want to show that they are no pushovers here. We'll be back to find out exactly how that pans out next week in Street Fighter League Pro Europe.
Welcome to week number 6.
It's week 6 in the US as well, and finally Team Endemic gets a week off. It's Panda versus CLG in our first fixture, and the high-flying NASA X Bandits go against Team UYU, desperately looking for a win. CLG were the away team, and they put forward a lineup of Just a Kid on Jury, Samurai with Luke, and Chris CCH also with Luke as Filipino man sat this one out. The first match saw Kami step up with his Luke against Just a Kid's Jury, but making the most of this V-Skill frame trap, he was able to close out a 2-0 victory. More Luke on your screen as Samurai went up against JB, who opted for Rashid, and it was more of the same from Samurai as he closed out a convincing 2-0 victory. 20 points behind, it saw Panda's Punk step in to keep his team in the fight in a Luke mirror match. A big opening first game saw Punk make a big statement and definitely make a statement heard by CLG. But it was Chris CCH who closed out the first game and put Team CLG in the driving seat with the advantage. But that is when Punk turned it on, not only with his in-game performance, but also with the trash talk. That means we're going into a tiebreaker, and Samurai was the one to step up to face Punk. Whether it was a frosty reception or hyper focus, Samurai was not reacting to the fist bump attempt from Punk. And how fitting was it after that the first round went down to the final seconds. Punk's pressure got Samurai to reach, and he was the one teaching as it went down to a final round. But a dominating lead from Samurai saw Punk overextend after the throws, and Samurai was able to close out the tiebreaker win, and look how much it meant to him.
It's gonna be those. And the headset is off. Samurai pop it off.
Samurai was clearly moved after that game, and he had a lot to say. You should definitely go and check this post-match interview out. Moving into the second game, and UIU in the away slot put forward a lineup of Cien on Seth, NL on Luke, and DCQ with Urian. It was Big Bird that stepped up, super confident in the Seth match, and pulled into an early lead. Looking to close it out, he made this mistake, trying to V-reversal the V-trigger. But in the next round, he made this genius play, forcing Cien to use V-reversal to avoid the chip kill that robbed him of the V-trigger activation. And it was from there that Big Bird was able to secure the KO and take a 2-0 win. Next up, it was Kaba who stepped up against NL, and he brought out his G once again. A few uncharacteristic mistakes cost NL in an early lead, but he was able to bring it back and tie it up. At set point up, NL made this hard read, but it didn't pay off, and we're going to a final round. And despite NL willing to gamble it all, Kaba was able to close out for the win. That took us into the third set with NASA Bandits up 20-0. DCQ was fighting for UYU's life, but he was going to be going up against Angry Bird, who also locked in with that Ken. No pun intended, but it seemed bad V reversals were mirrored in the NASA team, as this cost Angry Bird the first game. And in the second game, this punish on Angry Bird's EXDP sent the studio ecstatic. But despite the highlight reel combos, it was Angry Bird who won the second game, his corner pressure proving to be too much. And in a baffling situation, Angry Bird went for the same strategy that Big Bird did, trying to force a V reversal from his opponent to rob them of V trigger, but DCQ just ate the chip and died. With his confidence broken, DCQ cracked to the corner pressure of Angry Bird, and he was set point down. And in a scrappy last round, Angry Bird was happy to take to the skies and close it out for a 3-1 win and a 40-point victory for NASA X Bandits. It couldn't get any worse for UYU. That win saw NASA X Bandits put themselves clear at the top above Endemic, even with a game in hand. CLG maintain a 20-point gap between them and Panda, and UYU and Red Rooster are locked at the bottom of the table, but Red Rooster still have games to play. But those games aren't looking very kind, and it's going to be Red Rooster versus the high-flying NASA X Bandits in Week 7, and UYU are going to be looking for wins anywhere they can. Will they start with CLG? We'll find out next week. It was Week 10 in Street Fighter League Japan, and Day 1 saw Good 8 Squad away versus Komu for Detonation. Good 8 Squad confident at the top of the table. They needed one more big win to guarantee them a playoff place. They put forward a team of Gachikun with Rashid, Kawano with Colleen, and Dogura on M. Bison. Itazan stepped up and unveiled his G once again in Street Fighter League Japan, but Gachikun proved too strong and closed out a 2-1 win. Next up, Detonation sent forward John Takeuchi, flexing that Cody, and he proved incredibly strong in this matchup as he absolutely pummeled Kawano. 10 points apiece and all square going into the third match, and Dogura was going to face Yurio, who has looked very impressive with his Rose as of late. In a tense couple of opening games, it was Dogura who started to pull ahead, and his pressure on Rose proving to be too much as he opened up Yurio in the corner and closed out Game 3 for a 2-1 lead. Now, whilst this matchup might be difficult on paper for Rose, Yurio definitely had the tech for the V-skill as he leveled it up 2 games apiece, and we're going into a Game 5. Final game, final round, and Dogura was making the V-trigger comeback. This incredibly strange hitbox-hurtbox interaction meant that Dogura was gifted the win, and he got the huge 20 points for Good 8 Squad, who have now confirmed their place in the playoffs. In the second game, Saishunkan Seoul were away to Team Ixa. Seoul put forward a team lineup of Nemo on Urien, Shuto also on Urien, and Higuchi on Guile in the anchor role for that 20-point game. Gunfight stepped forward for the first match back on the Oro, but it didn't work out for him as Nemo soundly beat him 2-0 for a great start for Saishunkan Seoul. Crusher was up next to face Shuto, and he fought back incredibly in the second game, closing it out with a perfect to level things at 1-1. But a terrible miscalculation in the last seconds meant that Crusher would lose 2-1 here via timeout. That meant it was all down to Inaba's Bison in the anchor game going up against Higuchi. Higuchi had a 100% win record up until week 7, and after losing that perfect record versus perfect record match against Dogura, he's lost every game since. Inaba losing the first game by walking into this button, and Higuchi gladly confirms into CA for the KO. The tense last seconds of this round in Game 2 ended with the first of what will be many upside down kicks. But Inaba timed this dash perfectly with the explosion and was able to close out the second game to tie up 1 apiece. Inaba got caught out again by the upside down kick, and Higuchi closed it out to pull into the lead. No surprise how the final game closed out, and Higuchi gets the 20 points for a huge 40-point victory for Saishunkan Seoul, which will do them a world of good as we move towards the playoff places. Day 2 saw a all-star battle as Nagoya Oja Bodystar went up against V6 Plus FAV Roto Gaming, which featured some of the biggest names ever in Street Fighter V. Nagoya Oja Bodystar Mildon were the away team, and they put forward a lineup of Daigo on Guile, Akira on Kami, and it was Fudo who was in the anchor role, opening up with Armika. Torameshi's Dalsin was the one to step up confidently against Daigo's Guile, and the V-Trigger 2 pressure proved to be too much as he took an early lead in the first game. Once again, that V-Trigger 2 proved to be the crucial tool, and Torameshi closed out a 2-0 victory against the Beast. It was Bonchan with Luke who stepped up to face Akira in the second match, and it was a dominant performance as Bonchan managed to get the 2-0 victory and put V6 plus FAV Roto Gaming into a 20-point lead going into the final third game. Tokido was the one stepping up ready to face Fudo, and he locked in with Luke. And it looked like he'd been watching Phenom for some inspirations the way he was letting off the EXDPs. That caused Fudo to switch immediately to Poison, and he was gifted an opening right away by Tokido. A tense final round in Game 3 saw Tokido close it out and move ahead into the lead, but Fudo was certainly not down and out. That whiff punish confirming to CA meant that we were going into a fifth and final game. And this critical R was not enough of a comeback as Tokido closed it out 3-2 and locked in a big 40-point win for V6 plus FAV Roto Gaming. In our last game of the round, it was Gyogun who were facing Shinobizen Gaming in the away role. Shinobizen put forward a lineup of Yamaguchi on Luke, Fujimura also on Luke, and team captain Momochi, of course, on the Cody. In a matchup you better learn to love if you're a fan of Street Fighter League Japan, it was a Luke mirror as Mago stepped up to face Yamaguchi in Game 1. Mago proved that his experience was too much and he closed out a 2-0 victory. Gyogun's Mizua stepped forward with his Cody, which meant that we are not going to see the mirror match in that anchor game, but he was facing Fujimura on Luke. Things looked to be plain sailing for Mizua as he landed this stun combo at set point up, but Fujimura was not done yet. He managed to make an epic comeback and close it out 2-1 to level things up 10 points apiece as we went into our deciding third match. Team captain Momochi was waiting for his opponent, and to many people's surprise, it was Machabo who stepped up using M. Bison. We've seen him use a variety of characters recently, including Lucia to counter Poison, but this time the counter didn't seem to work, and it was 3 straight games back to back to back as Momochi dominated to bring home the points for Shinobizen Gaming. As you can see, good 8 squad clear at the top of the table by 50. That victory for Shinobizen Gaming sees them comfortable in second spot. Saishunkan Soul and FAV both winning sees them battling it out for 4th and 5th place as Gyogun drop out of the playoff spots. And it looks like Detonation have too much of a gap to make up in the bottom spot alongside Ixa, who are well out of the race. Shinobizen go up against Nagoya Oja Body Star Mildum in our first game, which is a big match for both teams. But even bigger is V6 plus FAV Roto Gaming showdown with top of the table good 8 squad. Day 2 sees Detonation and Ixa with a bottom of the table clash, which looks like it might almost be academic by now. And in a absolutely packed mid-table clash, Saishunkan Soul and Gyogun will battle it out in our 4th and final fixture. There's only 5 points separating 4 teams in the table, so whoever wins that is going to be looking great. Alright guys, that brings us to the end. We are now up to date with the Street Fighter League action from the past week. The only thing that there is for me to ask you guys is to get involved in the comments. Who was your MVP player this week across all of the regions? Just one. If we were to put head-to-head, Europe, Japan, the US, which one player would you guys say stood out for you across this week's fixtures? Don't forget, every week we round up the rest of the FGC in our traditional roundup show that's right here on YouTube if you've missed it. And we do the EX edition of the roundup live on Twitch every Wednesday night where we discuss the most important and hot topics in the FGC with the reversal team plus guests. Thanks so much to Capcom, of course, for putting on Street Fighter League and all of their broadcast partners, making some incredible matches available to us every week. Thank you to the players for putting on such great performances, and thank you to you guys for watching, getting involved, sharing the content, commenting, liking, and of course following or subscribing on whatever platforms we're on. We'll see you same time next week for more Street Fighter League action here at the Roundup. Until then, take care.